Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, everyone, depending on where you're joining from. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to this webinar today. My name is Sinead Obeng. I am an EI trustee and chair of the YP Council, the Young Professionals Council. And as a day job, I'm an environmental products regulatory affairs manager at Shell. So today we're going to be discussing this really exciting chapter for the Energy Institute with Nick Wayth. And before we get to that, I need to do some housekeeping. So this session is recorded for posting on our YouTube channel. And although this is very much designed to be an interactive discussion, we ask that you do keep yourselves on mute. And make the most of the chat box to provide any comments or questions, and we'll try our best to make our way through those comments and questions as we progress through the discussion. Now, the EI has seen kind of many faces of the industry, having been born from the Institute of Petroleum, which was founded in 1913, to being merged with the Institute of Energy, which was founded in 1925. And if you look at where we are today, we can really see that the Energy Institute has come a tremendous way. It's not only a professional body that engages in knowledge sharing and training and chartership and all of those things, but it's also at the heart of the energy transition. And today is really about sharing this new strategy and an ambitious strategy, to be honest, and to really talk about what it means for the EI, the role of the EI in society, but also us as members and us as an industry. So I would now like to take this opportunity to introduce Nick Wayth, the EI CEO, who doesn't really need an introduction, but he's been in post for 10 months now. So welcome, Nick.
Good morning, Sinead. It's great to be here and great to see you again.
So let's get to, I guess, our chat. You've been in post for 10 months, and most of us on this call have had an experience with the EI. I myself, I heard about the EI as a student, became a branch member, chaired a YP branch in London, and I've been a trustee for 4 or 5 years now. And I think most people on the call can definitely agree with me when I say that the EI has been a great space to kind of share common interests, passions for the sector, but also provide that opportunity to really broaden your understanding and holistic view of the energy sector. How would you describe your experience so far, and what has your journey been like since you've joined? And I have to say, I'd encourage you to be as candid as possible.
Well, thank you, Sinead, and good morning and good afternoon and good evening to all of you watching today. It's good to be here. I mean, I have to admit, I'm the new person to this. I suspect I'm one of the newest people to the EI on today's call. I've been here for 10 months, and in all candidness, I wasn't a member until I became chief executive. I've known about the Energy Institute for a long time. But despite having worked in energy, I didn't actually join the EI until I became chief executive. And that's something perhaps we should reflect on as we go through the conversation today. But my first impressions have been a really very warm and wonderful welcome to the EI family. I've inherited a fabulous team who do great work every day trying to progress the energy agenda of the EI. We're also blessed with a fantastic council, as you know, Sinead, and you are one of our trustees, who bring a real diversity, great experience and perspectives. And I've also been really impressed by the amount of work we do, from things like the barometer, which we've just launched this year, through to our technical work, through to our publications, and many of you will be aware of our new magazine, New Energy World, which was launched just 2 weeks ago. So that breadth of work has really impressed me. And I think the impact that comes with that, and we'll no doubt talk more about our societal impact as we go through today's conversation, but I think there is so much we are doing and also so much more we can do. But I guess above all, what's impressed me the most is the passion, the commitment, the energy of all of our volunteers, people like you, Sinead, but our many volunteers around the world, be those committee members, be those members of various panels that support us in our activities, be it people that just come and help us at events, speakers, panelists, moderators. And the diversity of that group has really encouraged me. We've got people from all walks of life. We've got some wonderful females. I'd love to have a lot more females engaged, but we really have got some real talent represented and a really wonderful range of ages. I'm sure people won't mind me saying this. Some of our volunteers are in their 80s and bring as much passion as energy as those in their 20s. And that richness of experience, backgrounds, perspectives is so important for what we stand for.
Yes, absolutely. And before we kind of delve into the details of the strategy, I think we can't ignore the current situation that we have, this energy crisis, and first and foremost, the incredibly devastating impact of the Russian invasion and those that are personally impacted. Now, from an energy perspective, how do you see this developing? I mean, it's a very kind of European-centric discussion, but of course there are knock-on effects globally, particularly when you look at what that means for climate mitigation and how that's prioritized.
Absolutely, Sinead, and this is a human tragedy on many levels. Clearly, the people of Ukraine are impacted, and we see that playing out day by day. But there are also many other human dimensions. I mean, let's start with the climate crisis. I wrote about this in our new publication just a couple of weeks ago, and I've described this as a triple energy crisis. And I think we are in the midst of the largest energy crisis, certainly in your lifetime, Sinead, and probably in my lifetime, that the world has faced. 6 months ago, less than 6 months ago, the world gathered in Glasgow to address the climate crisis. And I think you can argue glass half full, glass half empty. I'm an optimist, and I think it was half full. And we do have strong commitment, convergence, and increasing alignment on how we address the climate crisis. And I think we often think about the climate crisis being something that's going to impact planet Earth, 50, 100 years from now, which clearly it will do. But we are seeing the impacts of climate crisis right here, right now, today, for many people around the world as weather patterns change. So I think that first crisis, is front and foremost. Secondly, in the last few months, we've increasingly talked about energy prices. And remember, all of this happened before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And tomorrow, energy prices in people's households in the UK will increase by 54% on average. And this is a devastating blow. I mean, people have been struggling with energy prices today, and we have this huge change tomorrow. Around 13% of households in the UK were defined as being in energy poverty. And this is the latest data, but that goes back to 2020. In Northern Ireland, where I was last week, that number is 22% and is set to go to 40%. And we've yet to get to the October rises, which I suspect are going to be the same quantum. So this is a real human tragedy that is playing around us, in cities and towns and villages across the UK and in other parts of Europe, people having to choose between heating and eating. And this is a pretty worrying time, and it's going to drive inflation in every other part of the economy as well. And then lastly, a geopolitical crisis, clearly, as you've referenced, in Russia, Ukraine, that is driving a supply crisis. And we are seeing, and I think it's a pertinent reminder as to how interconnected the global energy system is. And I think to me, this is a huge challenge. I also think the positive news, if there is positive news, is in many respects, the solution to these three crises is really much aligned along the same agenda. Number one, driving energy efficiency. There is so much more we can do on energy efficiency. The Energy Institute does a huge amount of work on chartering energy managers, on a whole range of training. And each of us has a role to play. And it really is as simple as the small changes each of us can make, as well as fundamental shifts in the housing stock and broader technologies to drive energy efficiency. Number two, I think there are those that would say, well, we need to focus on price and security over climate. I completely disagree with that. I think we need to accelerate the transition. The transition is good for addressing all three crises. And the faster we can deploy more renewables, the faster we can decarbonize fossil fuels, the faster we can drive technologies that will help improve efficiency, the better we're going to get to addressing all three of those crises. And then the last aspect is we shouldn't forget that today, 80% of the world's energy comes from hydrocarbons, about 50% is oil and gas, and we need to think of those as part of the solution. And I do think here, Europe in particular has been somewhat guilty of having double standards. We resist, we challenge, in some instances, we have banned the development of domestic gas resources, and at the same time, we've imported gas from LNG, in the form of LNG, from the States, from Russia, from Qatar. We've pipelined gas from Russia. We now need to think about that a bit differently. And this, to me, is an emotive topic. The word fracking is normally jumped to very quickly. Not all gas is fracked, but I think we need to have a sensible discussion on the role of natural gas in the transition and how we as an industry ensure that that natural gas is produced more efficiently, safely, and with fewer methane emissions.
Thanks, Nick. And if I bring in a couple of comments that have come in, so Harpreet addresses that, now is the time where a lot of people are talking about CCS, and probably linking to your point there that yes, there is a role for gas, but the context in which we think about exploration and gas as a transitional source of energy needs to be done in a way that's climate friendly. So thank you for highlighting that, Harpreet. I think it's really important, the CCS aspect. Jules asks, what do you believe to be the energy source with the most potential in the future? And I think that's a great and very difficult question. So what are your thoughts on that, Nick?
Well, and I'll be careful on this one because I think it's important that we don't pick winners. But I think the market society does pick winners, and that's right. Clearly we've seen the incredible growth of solar, and in many respects, the future growth of solar, I think, is without question going to continue to happen. And this is a personal view, but every new home that's built anywhere, even in northern climes, should have solar built into the roof. It's far more efficient to build it in. I think we also need to recognize that you can't place a single bet. We need to have a diverse mix of energy resource. We've seen the huge rollout of offshore wind here in the UK. That's been enabled by having the right systems, the right policies, the right regulation in place to drive that as a sector. So I think it's going to be a combination of things, and we need technology to continue to play a role as we develop new technologies. I was out at the world's largest solar farm just 2 weeks ago in Dubai. They're also developing a concentrated solar power plant alongside that, and for a long time, PV has been seen as the winner versus concentrated solar, but actually, if you can scale concentrated solar, it brings some real benefits in terms of the ability to store energy. So it takes a combination of all these things. And I think what's most important is that at the Energy Institute, we are here to support, to nurture talent and bring all forms of energy into the mix.
Thanks, Nick. And related to that, I guess as we look into 2030, how do you see the EI strategy aligning with different industry sectors, the societal needs, considering the high price environment, and also, I guess, on a more micro level, our members as well?
Well, let's maybe talk about the strategies. We've got a couple of slides we'll bring onto screen. I think the first thing to say is this is an evolution of strategy. It's not a revolution. So, we are not reframing what the Energy Institute is going to be doing or how we do it. But I think, in my view, we've lived in a world, and this is somewhat of an oversimplistic characterization, but bear with me. I would argue for much of the last 2-3 decades, the world of energy really hasn't fundamentally changed. Yeah, it's been driven fundamentally by hydrocarbons, and we've seen the growth of renewables, but we haven't had a significant shift. That changed, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. And we are now entering a period where the next 2-3 decades will see an unprecedented transition of the energy sector. And therefore, the Energy Institute needs to reflect that in its purpose and its strategy. And we have now created a very clear new purpose, which is to create a better energy future for our members and for society by accelerating a just global transition to net zero. That word just is used an awful lot, and I do worry it's sometimes used as a bit of a buzzword. I mean, for us, we need to be clear what we mean by that, and it has multiple dimensions. When I think about a just transition, I think about the role we have in enabling developing economies to have access to energy. Now, we want that access to energy to be clean energy, but we also need to recognize that the world in Europe, that we benefit from the energy system we've had in place for a century or more, has been driven by hydrocarbons, and therefore playing a role in the rollout, the reduction of methane emissions in natural gas in developing economies is something we need to keep in mind in this process. I also think about the ability to move staff, employees from workers from the oil and gas sector into new forms of energy. And I think there are many lessons. As the coal industry declined in the UK, it left whole communities behind, devastating whole areas of the UK, in particular in the north of England and in parts of Wales. So we need to think about that aspect too. So to bring this alive a little bit, Sinead, we've highlighted sort of 3 key strategic themes. So number one, it is all about attracting, developing, equipping the diverse energy workforce of the future. Number 2, informing energy decision-making through convening expertise and advice. And number 3, enabling industry and consumers to make energy lower carbon, safer and more efficient. So hopefully all the work we do from now on will fit under one or more of these themes. Clearly not everything fits neatly in one area, but I think it's really important that we set out what it is we do as an organisation and how we do it.
Thanks, Nick. I'd like, as we have kind of these 3 themes here, I'd like to link that to some of the questions that we've seen come through. So in no particular order, I guess in the middle, you have kind of informing decision-making through convening expertise and advice. Doug has a question about the fact that there isn't kind of one technology or policy to find the best solution. So does the EI have a view on government-controlled, state-owned, controlled bodies or organizations, all the way to the free market in terms of finding the right solutions to meet the energy transition? I guess how I understand that question is, there are different business models for different types of technologies, and some of those require a lot of government support and input, and some of those are kind of left to the free market. So what are your thoughts on those schools of thought from a policy decision-making perspective, and where do you see the EI fitting in?
That's a great question, Doug, and thank you for that. I mean, I think, first of all, it's important to say that we pride ourselves in our neutral, trusted, honest broker status, and we are a professional membership body. We're not a trade association. Our role is not to advocate for one form of energy over the other. But I think we shouldn't confuse that neutral, trusted status for not having a view and not being part of the dialogue. And I think it is increasingly important that we do play that role with government, with policymakers, government here in the UK, but also potentially governments elsewhere. I was in Bahrain just 2 weeks ago, and they're talking about how they go through a transition as a country, as an economy. And I do think we have a potential role to support government, and we do that through bringing together our experts, our fellowship, our members, bringing in those diverse perspectives and helping decision makers, policy makers really understand the facts. And I think there's a lot of emotion in many of the topics around energy. One only has to go on LinkedIn and talk about hydrogen or heat pumps to really get some quite polarized views. And I think our role is to bring together that expertise, to hold the discourse in a safe but challenging space. So we ensure that we are fact-based, and we ensure that we bring in different perspectives. and then let the right people make those decisions. So I don't think we are here to make decisions, but I very much believe we're here to inform those decisions. And we do that through our publications, we do that through our events. You'll know, you were there, Sinead, that we launched International Energy Week this year as a successor to International Petroleum Week. Now, on the one hand, you could say it was just a name change, but the whole content of that conference has shifted into the transition. And this isn't about leaving part of the energy sector behind. It's about reflecting the entirety of the energy sector and bringing that whole industry together. It's very hard to bring people from a renewables company into a conference called International Petroleum Week. And so I think that was a subtle, or maybe not so subtle change, but a really important change to how we view that event.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's quite a good way of addressing James's question as well, about having discussions that are kind of sector-wide and not silo-based. So obviously there are different pathways to hydrogen. Blue hydrogen can be achieved through the process of natural gas. So you bring in, big industrials, you bring in the upstream sector. You bring in so many different things when you talk about that as again a potential transition route to decarbonisation. Something I personally am really keen to talk about is the first theme, so attracting and developing and equipping the diverse future of the energy workforce. So net zero is a huge and a massive endeavour for the industry and practically. And to be honest, from my observations, I'm not so convinced that energy businesses and our sector still appreciate the amount of reskilling, the amount of alternative approaches that are needed to really retain and attract talent. I think there is a reason why the tech sector is doing such a great job of attracting young talent, because I see campaigns, tech campaigns all over the place. And what they're doing is they're really providing an access route to anyone from any background, any walk of life, any academic background to really have a role to play in the tech sector. And I just haven't seen that in the energy sense. And I still feel that energy companies are expecting to find talent that, or the majority of them, I won't say all of them, but expecting to find talent that meet absolutely every single requirement. I mean, what are your perspective and thoughts on this? And do you think our sector will get there in time? Because I personally, I'm a bit concerned by it, and it'd be great to see how the EI feels that it can contribute to kind of the way in which things are done currently, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and I'd love to hear your perspectives on this question, Sinead, so we'll come back to your views in a minute. I think this is so important, and I think if we're honest, the energy sector, it had a pretty appalling reputation before what's going on now, before the price rises and everything that's going on. And I think a lot of that is probably self-inflicted. I think, and you can argue that it's very difficult if you work for a large integrated energy company like you do, Sinead, to be all things to all people. But I think the energy sector needs to come together and really create a combined vision of what we stand for. How important. I mean, I cannot think of a more exciting industry to be in right now. I've spent 25 years of my life in this sector, and the next 25 years look more exciting than they ever have done in history, in my view. I think there is so much more we need to do to bring in a broader set of talent into the industry. I think large energy companies are, somewhat, if not very guilty of sort of recruiting, developing only from within. And I think that's tended to lead to sort of companies that have people that look and feel very similar to one another. And as you talk about tech companies, I don't think the tech companies have got it right, by the way. If you look at the statistics on gender diversity, for many of those companies, that's not something to write home about. But then the energy industry, I sit on the board of Powerful Women. The energy industry also has a very long way to go around gender. So I do think we have an important role as the Energy Institute tell the story, to sort of let the world know how important this sector is for every aspect of human life. And unfortunately, society right now is finding out, how important energy is for all the wrong reasons. So let's create some, excitement, some passion around that. I think we need to bring in a far broader range of talents as we think about new energy. It's going to require behavioral change. It's going to require very different skills from the sort of largely engineering skills base we've had for so many years. And we need development. I worry about that skills gap too, Sinead. We've got to have the right training in place to really help people come through this. And one of the things I'm perhaps most excited about is, we do some great training as the EI. I'd be like us to do a lot more on that. And we're in the midst of scoping out that will help really create a far more.
Nick, I'm not sure if it's me, but the signal went a little bit as
okay. I just asked, what are your thoughts, Sinead, on this question?
Yeah, I appreciate in many corporate sectors there is a diversity issue. And I think that many sectors are taking great strides and steps to improve diversity. What I would like to see more of is discussions about inclusion, because diversity can just be about bringing the people into your organization, but without inclusion, the diversity efforts are really pointless. And I think the energy sector, or at least the EI, is in a great position with having kind of, as an international organization, but also having a very diverse workforce in itself, and access to different initiatives like Generation 2050 and Power for Women and other things. It's placed in a brilliant position to help educate on inclusion, and to really make sure that, okay, once kind of organizations are pleased with the strides they've made in diversity and can see improvements, now it's about looking internally and looking at cultural shift, and making sure that that diverse range of talent is really being used in a fruitful way, and that only comes with inclusion as well.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And look, one thing that really excites me about the EI I didn't mention before is the young professionals, which I know you chair. Are really active young professionals around the world. On average, our young professional groups are far more diverse than the overall membership of the EI, and that's very encouraging, and it's really good to get different perspectives. I met some of the young professionals out in the Middle East. I was in Northern Ireland last week meeting some of the young professionals there, and I get real confidence and excitement about the next generation coming through. And I also want to say this is not about excluding, and I'll be very blatant in my words, this is not about excluding white men in their 60s or 70s. I think there is so much to learn in both directions, and I've been really encouraged by some of the perspectives, some of the feedback I've had from a whole range of volunteers around the EI family. So I think much more to be done in this space, and I do think the EI can play a really important role through the young professionals, through Generation 2050, and our role in initiatives like Power for Women.
Absolutely. And I think that links quite nicely to two questions about resources. So the first was, I've lost it now, but yes, raising awareness about the EI's resources and benefits of being a member internationally. And linked to that, Michael has asked about, there's a great offering from the Energy Institute, but it would be great to understand more about how the EI will promote this broader across the industry and also worldwide as well.
Yeah, and of course, there's so much we do as an organisation. It's sometimes hard to sort of find where things are. And one of the things I really want to make clear under that, all three of these strategic themes, but particularly that first one, is how we really make a far more joined up, compelling membership offer. I mentioned the scoping we're doing on our training offer around an EI Academy. And we are soliciting input from around the world on what people need, what they're looking for. And we're also recognizing we can't be everything to everyone. And so we do need to make choices and be clear what we are going to do and what we're not going to do. I also think one of the things I really see an opportunity for is I've really enjoyed meeting people in the various EI communities around the world. I mentioned a couple of places I've been to recently. I've spoken to committees from Humber to Hong Kong, Malaysia, and everywhere in between. I would love to see much more global connectivity. And so one of the things we are looking at is how do we connect members on a global basis? And this isn't about taking apart the regional connectivity, which I think is really important, but I am sure people would love to connect by themes on offshore wind, CCUS, methane management, whatever it is people want to connect on energy. I think we can do a far better job of facilitating that. And hopefully we'll have more news as we go through the course of this year. I'm also delighted that we've appointed for the first time a global communities manager in the form of Yuande Abiasi, who, for those of you who don't know her, brings a huge amount of passion and energy. And she's making her way around all of the different communities at the moment, virtually and hopefully in person as well, to really help provide those connections, to understand what our communities and volunteers are looking for around the world. So, I mean, this is one of those areas where we have I think, some exciting thoughts, but we would love to hear from you, our members, as to what you would like to see, how we can help, what's missing, what more can we do, how can we help you navigate everything that we have available to you.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate that energy is broad, and you're right when you say, as an organization, we can't be everything to everyone. But going back to kind of what we discussed at the Open, many are facing hardship as prices surge, and it's not just the everyday consumer, it's impacting businesses, it's impacting the GDPs around the world. So when you look at kind of the broader society and non-energy professionals, what role does the EI have in its policies around that public debate from that perspective when you're kind of looking outside of the industry?
Yeah, I think we do have something to do here. And I think it is about helping society better understand the industry, better understand the facts. As I alluded to before, there is a lot of emotion. There's often quite polarized views around different forms of energy, which I don't think is helpful. I think we have a role to play in bringing a balanced, trusted, fact-based perspective on how the energy system works and how individuals, how schools, how businesses can make a difference. And none of this triple crisis is going to be solved overnight. I think we're in this is going to play out over a number of years. So, unfortunately, there is no quick fix to the prices that will go up tomorrow and will go up again in October. And that's happening around the world. But I think we can help really inform people of the things they can do. And one of the things I'm really excited about is a training package called Energy Aware. It's a simple, online, very effective training program. It's available to anyone. We've recently completed a deal with a large UK store chain, who many of you will know, and we'll announce that formally in the next few weeks. And that will be rolled out to 30,000 staff. And my view is that's something that we can really make a difference. The last few weeks I have been going around my house, really doing my own energy audit, making sure that I have got LED bulbs everywhere, that I have lighting, and this is really focusing the mind. But I think we need to help people with what they can do, and things like that, backed up by the professional qualifications we offer around chartered energy management, I think will make us a difference and make us more relevant. So I would love to see things like that rolled out in schools, rolled out in businesses, hospitals, and so on and so forth. And then beyond that, everything we do in terms of publications, our podcast, we've made our new publication, New Energy World, freely available to all for the first 3 months. It is intended to be a member magazine, so it won't remain fully available to everyone forever. But I think, pulling out some of the really informative articles from that publication, I think can help make a difference. And I would encourage all of you as our members to think about the impact you can make, the messages you can share with friends and family around how excited and passionate you are about energy, but also the role they can play in helping to move on through these challenges.
Absolutely. A couple of people have mentioned mentoring as well. I'd like to take the opportunity to tag that there is an EI Connect mentoring scheme, and it'd be great to have all of you on this call part of that, whether it's as a mentee or a mentor. I think it's a really important offering that the EI has, and it's a great opportunity to really share learnings across different sectors, across different silos as well.
Absolutely. And I would just add, if I may, I mean, I think we could all benefit from being both a mentor and a mentee. I think there's an old-fashioned perspective that the mentor is somebody who's worked in the industry for 20 years and the mentee is somebody new to the industry. And honestly, I think never, more than ever, the ability to share in both directions is critical. So we should think about these as two-way relationships in every sense.
Absolutely. You mentioned the new energy world, and I've read a couple of articles on there, which I have really enjoyed. In light of, if anyone hasn't read it, it's, if you don't mind me saying it, it's incredibly punchy, which is a great thing. And it's great to have some really thought-provoking output kind of come out through the digital magazine. So in light of kind of that punchiness and that increased openness to debate, how would you describe the continuing vision for maintaining a sector-wide focus for the EI, regardless of technology or the discipline or geography? I mean, there's already some debate in the chat today. So how do we prioritize these different sectors and approach that?
It's a great question, and thank you for the commentary on New Energy World. I realise that when we do something new and we replace two magazines which many people had really valued for many years, inevitably it feels like we're taking something away. I really hope people engage and feel that the New Energy World publication really covers the best of what we did before and provides those really engaging, punchy articles, as well as some deep dives. But we need to hear from you. We need your feedback on that. So as we're third edition. If people have got feedback, please do let me and the team know. To answer your question, I mean, I think we pride ourselves on being a big tent. I think historically the Energy Institute grappled a little bit with as it moved into more of the energy transition space, as it moved into some of the technical work in renewables. I sense from people I've spoken with that there was seen as a bit of a conflict. I really don't see this as a conflict. I see a world where a lot of energy is converging. The skills that exist in the oil and gas sector can transfer over into renewables and be incredibly relevant and valuable, and vice versa. So I think it's really important we maintain that big tent approach, and we welcome anybody from energy to join us and to be part of the discourse. I also think within that, we shouldn't conflate that with thinking we can do everything for everybody really well. And so we are setting out, clear areas where, particularly in our technical work, and we should talk more about that, Sinead, where we partner with around 50 technical partners. We have about 1,000 industry experts who work with us to make energy safer and lower carbon and more efficient. And that work plays out in our good practice publications, where we're working with industry. We are doing all of those things in collaboration. Companies who, on the one hand, compete with each other, but in the matter of safety or in matter of emissions, they want to work together to make the industry better, and that's fantastic. And that work has evolved from historically sort of very hydrocarbon focused work to offshore wind. So some of our audience today may not know that the G+ safety program is hosted by the Energy Institute, and we're very proud to help make offshore wind safer. And some of that is transferring lessons directly learned from the oil and gas sector into a growing new business like offshore wind. Equally, I think we will prioritize the areas that we want to work on, and so in setting out some clear growth areas, there is a focus on decarbonising fossil fuels through CCUS, through blue hydrogen, through methane emission reductions. There's a focus on integrated power and renewables in the work we're doing in offshore wind, CCUS, battery storage. We're also very active in the aviation space and thinking how we can help the world of sustainable aviation fuels play out. And last of all, in terms of sort of the industry vertical, energy efficiency and energy management, a huge opportunity to really focus on that area. So those are sort of 4 growth areas. It doesn't mean we won't do other things, but those 4 areas sort of are framing our thinking. And then underlying all of that is the work we do on safety, which cuts across all of industry. Things like Toolbox, which is now available in 9 languages, is as relevant in wind and solar as it is in offshore oil and gas. And then the sort of work we do on fundamentals, so a broad brush understanding of the energy system, the training we do with civil servants here in the UK, in Scotland, and hopefully in the future elsewhere in the world. So there's a balance here, and we won't always get it right, and would like to hear from our members when you think we are forgetting things, or when we're not yet doing things in new areas. And I know geothermal is sort of coming back into the fore. I think there's a genuinely open question whether we have a role to play in geothermal, and I don't have an answer for that yet. But I think working with our members and our various committees, we will help figure out, well, do we bring something to that? Can we make that part of the industry safer and better?
Thanks, Nick. And looking to back to skills and the role that EI has when it comes to attracting talent, and it's also related to oil and gas. I think it's a good opportunity to bring Colin's point that the Aberdeen branch have supported school career guidance for a long time, but now because discussions are energy transition focused, there's less capacity and less knowledge base to provide that same offering for schools. So what does the EI have available, if anything, or is there a plan in terms of central resourcing to help educate school children on developments in the energy space and how they can get involved in future?
Yeah, well, it's great. It's a great question, and I just give a little mention to the Aberdeen Highlands and Islands branch, who are incredibly active. For those of you who haven't seen it, the video that the young professionals there and others produced for COP was truly a moment of great pride for me as chief executive up in Glasgow. I think we haven't answered how much of a role we should play going down to the school level. I mentioned before about energy efficiency and energy aware. And I think that's something we need to work on a sort of global basis and on a regional basis as to where the passion lies, what we want to do, and what we can contribute. I think it's also important to mention that we should work, not in isolation, but in partnership with other groups. So, I sit alongside the CEOs of the other professional engineering institutes, where we're constantly trying to figure out how we can work together on aspects such as STEM, education in schools, working with groups like Engineering UK. So I'm not directly answering Colin's question, because I don't have a single right answer. And again, this is sort of something we'd love to hear from you and other members out there. But I think where we can make a difference, we should try and do it. But I also think we need to make sure we don't try and do everything at once, because I think prioritization, focusing is how we'll actually make more of an impact through time.
Yeah, and if I can slightly challenge that in terms of the plans and what's going on. I'm an economist by background, and there has never been a route to attracting economists like myself into the energy sector. Now, economists are everywhere in energy just by default, because of the implications on markets, the implications on consumers. But more formally, is there a way in which we can share and expose opportunities for accountants, lawyers, economists, et cetera, that don't sit within STEM? Because that was kind of what I was talking about on the tech side, is that they say, oh, you're a lawyer, come and work for us as a product manager. And those kind of synergies, I don't think are made too clearly in the energy space.
Yeah, no, we have to do that, Sinead. I mean, it's a good challenge, but I fully agree with you. And it's, I mean, look, here you are sitting on our council as an economist. So, that's a positive that we don't have a council of trustees that's made up of engineers. It includes some engineers, but it's certainly not dominated by engineers. And that's evolved in recent years. I think, again, back to this notion of a big tent, we should be attracting all disciplines into this, into the EI. We should think about the right sort of development programs for them, and really embrace that diversity of perspective. And I mentioned before, there are new disciplines. I think economists have been involved with energy for a very long time, but behavioral science has a huge role to play. But how many of us know behavioral scientists within this sector? And I think really embracing those different disciplines, app developers, every discipline is going to be required in order to deliver this energy transition. And we need to make it attractive. Equally, I think, we need to then focus, well, what's the offering? What do we offer an economist in energy through the Energy Institute? Is it going to be training around energy economics? That's an open question, because I think you then get into a world of, where you then might have to do, energy law to attract lawyers. You might have to do, accounting in energy. And so striking the right balance of how we do that at different parts of the world is something that I think will be a continual discussion. We've set out a high-level strategy which gives us a clear direction of travel. What we haven't yet worked out is the detail that underlies that, and where we specifically then grow our offering. And once again, would value perspectives from everybody that's joining us on this call today.
Brilliant. And I see a great comment and success story from Tom, who's an economist. And yes, the fundamentals of economics is about kind of studying scarce resources, and has gone into environmental management, and then energy management. So yeah, I think that is a great story to tell. So Tom is definitely someone that it'd be great to speak to about how we can really promote stories like this to other economists. And yeah, to bring in that as a part of the EI's expertise and offering as well.
Absolutely. And look, it's great. We've got at least 2 energy economists on today's call, Sinead, so I hope you take some comfort from that. But this, we need to be inclusive in every sense. So, that cuts across disciplines and every aspect of our membership.
Yeah, absolutely. And another related comment coming in about kind of trying to attract more participants from commercial disciplines. Yes, absolutely. And I think I'm more than happy to contribute to thinking about ways in which we can bring that expertise or enhance it in the EI. I'm sure it's there. We clearly have at least three people that are engaged. So we can do our best to enhance that.
And Sinead, when we talked about, I admitted up front that I wasn't a member until I became chief executive, and I've reflected upon that actually. On the one hand, I felt a little bit guilty, particularly in the interview process, explaining that I wasn't a member. Equally, I would sort of say, well, have we reached out to people in as passionate, as compelling a way as we might do? And I think one of the things we need to do more of is market ourselves better, not for the sake of increasing our brand awareness, but really making sure we're reaching out to people so they know who we are. And we'll be thinking about some of the campaigns we can run on LinkedIn that bring, just highlight, shine a light on, our existing diversity, and then attracting, more energy economists, more commercial folk, more, lawyers, every kind of shape of discipline that we're looking to attract. So I think we need to tell those stories and sort of explain what the value proposition is, and what people can expect to get from us.
Yeah. And so looking at our membership, what can we expect EI membership to look like and feel like by 2030? Feels a long time away, but what are your thoughts on 2030 and I guess the route to getting there would be really, really good to hear about.
Well, it will be with us before we know it, 2030, I'm afraid to say. So life seems to move pretty fast. And, number one, we've got a fabulous membership. On some measures, we've got some good diversity data. On other measures, we've got an awfully long way to go. So I would love to see a far more diverse membership, attracting a lot more females, a lot more people of all ages, a lot more people of different colours and different geographies, and as we just talked about, different disciplines. So that's number one, really being the home for anybody in energy that feel that they can learn and contribute to what we do. I think there's a lot more we plan and hope to deliver in terms of membership experience. We've talked about the new magazine. I think improving our digital offer so that members feel far more connected. They can access what they need very easily. I think a lot of people are, all the stuff is there on the website, but it's not always the easiest job to find out where it exists. So really making that accessible. I think there's something about sort of better joining up our individual membership with our corporate membership. So we have some great technical work being undertaken, but I suspect that many of the colleagues of, your colleagues at Shell and colleagues of people who are supporting us at many other energy companies aren't aware of the great work that's being done. So how do we better connect people within their companies, but also then how do we connect people across the global community? How do we create a practice of offshore wind engineers or energy economists? Let's get something in place that lets all of the people who are energy economists or who are interested in the economics of energy connect through the right sort of platform, so that we create as well as the sort of regional communities, we've got communities of good practice. I think the training we've talked about a bit today, Sinead, I would hope and really committed to having a far more coherent, compelling, joined up energy training offer. We need to decide where in the world we're going to do that, who we're doing it for, and which aspects we plan to do, who we partner with to deliver that. But I would hope that we have a far more compelling offering that thinks about, not just new skills, but reskilling existing workforce. And I really hope by 2030, our membership is all of those things, and it feels real engagement, and it feels that it's making a difference. And I do think, we're a relatively small organization. We're not of the scale of a large energy company, but our impact, our reach is actually pretty amazing when you think about the companies we interface, the quality of people, the richness of expertise. Our reach is pretty phenomenal around the world. And I genuinely think we can make an impact, and we can make a difference, and we can accelerate that transition to a net zero future. So I'm incredibly excited, but none of this is going to happen by itself. None of this is going to happen in isolation with just my team doing it. It's going to require all of us to play a role in that. So I'm really grateful for all of the support all of our volunteers give us already, and looking forward to that great contribution moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as a trustee and chair of the YP Council, I'd like to echo that this strategy is only feasible with support from the members and volunteers, and it is a membership-led organization. And if you see something or you feel that something is lacking that would be a fantastic part of the strategy, then do come to us. Do come to the leadership team in EI, Nick, myself, to really share ideas and share your expertise, because the EI is here to serve its members and to help its members, whether it's kind of personal, professional recognition or skills development, or just expanding and sharing knowledge. I think what Nick has alluded to is that the EI is supposed to be a place that really facilitates that. So we have 5 minutes left, and I think I'd like to take this opportunity to summarize. So essentially the EI strategy looking to 2030 has 3 streams about attracting and developing a diverse energy workforce, and we've spoken about how inclusion is a really important piece in that. Also about informing energy decision-making through convening expertise and advice. So not just to businesses or member companies through technical guidance and good practice, but also talking to governments and giving kind of science-based and science-led expertise and guidance on how we can really get to net zero and one day net negative as well. And the third theme, just being really about enabling the industry and its consumers to make better informed decisions. So for all of us in this situation, checking our thermostats, doing our meter readings before the price cap kicks in tomorrow, just really being intelligent at home and practicing what we preach. And the EI is hopefully a route to doing that. So I'd like to thank you all for joining, and Nick, thank you very much for this as well, and for taking us through the strategy. We've noted some comments about offers of help, some comments about the technical debate as well. So the team has taken those on board. If I haven't mentioned your comment, it's not because I'm dismissing it, it's because it's something that's very detailed that I think is worth exploring at a later date. So please feel free to get in touch with us. Nick's email address is there on the page, and Nick, feel free to add anything I've missed about kind of members touching base with you personally.
Well, no, as you said it, Sinead, we're a member-led organisation, and without you, our members, we would not exist. So we really want to hear from you. A couple of you have commented this is new to you. Well, we haven't rolled this out beyond our staff and council, so we wanted to really let members know about this before we talk about it more broadly. So if it is new, it is because it's the first time we're really rolling this out to all of you as members. So I hope you found it helpful. As I said, this is a high-level strategy. It sets our direction. It sets clarity on prioritization and focus. What we have yet to do is really build out the underpinnings, the details behind it, and we would love to hear from you. And I think just recognizing that we want to make an impact, we want to make a difference, and within that we need to make sure we focus on the things that we are really good and capable at. So just a huge thank you, Sinead, for hosting this so ably today, and thank you once again to all of our membership for joining and everything that you do for the Energy Institute.
Thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic day and rest of the week.